All right, let's get it. I've been quiet for a little while. I was taking a little break. I was trying to see how this political cycle played out. But uh but yeah, now I'm back. I'm back and I got some things to say. I got some things I want to talk about and today I want to start by talking about Matthew Livelsberger, Shamud Jabbar, and I hope I'm saying his name correctly, Daniel Penny, and Luigi Mangione. And I'm going to make some interesting, at least what I think are interesting connections between all of these guys. And I'm also going to make some interesting distinctions between all of these guys. So, with all of that being said, let's jump into it. Matthew Libelsberger and Shamu Jabbar, which are both pictured on the screen, are the New Year's Eve attackers. Jabbar ran down a lot of people in New Orleans at the Sugar Bowl, and Livelsberger committed suicide in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. So, what are the things that these guys have in common? Other than committing their attacks on New Year's Eve. I'll come back to that later on in the video. Now, I just want to be clear when I say that neither one of these guys are good guys. They're both bad guys. In fact, everyone that I'm going to talk about is a bad guy. My issue is the way that the media is framing the conversation. Immediately, Jabbar is being called a terrorist and an extremist, and rightfully so. But Livelsberger is being framed as a guy with PTSD that was suffering from mental illness. While all of that may be true, there is something, in my opinion, that is being overlooked, that is being glossed over. Yes, he only killed himself. No, he did not harm anyone else. Those are the facts. But I think what's being lost is the intent. He intended on harming others. How do I know this? Because if he wanted to kill himself, he could have just drove off into the woods and killed himself. Thus, no one else would have been harmed. But the fact that you drove to a hotel where you know there were a lot of people, you packed up the Cybertruck with fireworks with the intent of causing a huge explosion to harm as many people as possible. So the only reason why he did not commit an extremist act, an act of terrorism, if you will, is because he's kind of incompetent. The intent was there. So yeah, he is a terrorist, an extremist. And I find it interesting that no one is really talking about his manifesto. I mean, because everyone has a manifesto, right? Stating how he wanted to exterminate Democrats from the government. And he was down for using extreme force. I mean, let's just be real about it. So is it because he's MAGA that the media is kind of I don't want to say being an apologist for this guy, but sort of, like I said, glossing over the fact that he intended to harm a lot of people. That's just something to think about.
You're a pro. You can make a 5-ton HVAC condenser.
Let's move on. Next, I'm going to discuss Daniel Penny and Luigi Mangione. Daniel Penny was recently acquitted of killing Jordan Neely on the subway in New York, while Luigi Mangione is awaiting trial for the murder of the United Healthcare CEO in New York. Let me be clear when I say this. Both of these guys are killers. They are both murderers. Now, I can't predict the future, but Luigi is probably going to spend the rest of his life in jail. While Penny, on the other hand, did not do a single day in jail. Both of these guys committed a murder. What's the difference? Daniel Penny killed a homeless black kid. Mangione killed a white guy. Why do you have to make this racial? Well, because it is racial. I'm sorry. It just is. There's no other way that you can slice it. That's why I was saying in the beginning that there are similarities and there are differences. But the most disgusting thing about all of this is the way the media is framing it. Right-winged media is propping up Daniel Penny like he's some kind of hero. Trump and JD Vance invited this guy to the Army Navy game as if he's some type of hero. No, he's a killer. He's a murderer. He should be in jail right now. And I just can't understand why some of you Negroes think that Trump has your back. Can it be more obvious that he doesn't? But you know what's even worse? Is some of you Negroes were trying to convince other black people to vote for Trump. I mean, it's cool. You got the right to vote for whoever you want to, but don't try and convince other people. It just makes me wonder, are some of y'all double agents? I guess that's another topic for another time. But anyway, yeah, it's shocking how the media frames one story to the next, right? But there is something else that I found interesting. 3 out of the 4 guys that I've mentioned all have something in common. And if you're paying attention, you're probably going, yeah, it's obvious. 3 of them are white. And that's true. But that's not the link that I want to discuss. The actual link that I want to discuss is 3 out of the 4 guys mentioned are ex-military. Three out of the 4 are U.S. veterans. So the question is there a component that makes people violent? No. I'm not saying that correctly. Is there a link between U.S. veterans and violence? And I'm not saying all U.S. veterans are prone to violence. I'm not saying that at all. But I am proposing the question, is there a link? So I want to read this small excerpt from an article I found on The Intercept, theintercept.com, if you want to go read the whole article. And it reads, from 1990 to 2010, about 7 persons per year with U.S. military backgrounds committed extremist crimes. Since 2011, that number has jumped to almost 45 per year, according to the data from a new, unreleased report shared with The Intercept by Michael Jensen, the research director at the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism, or START, at the University of Maryland. They always have to have an acronym, right? Military service is also the single strongest individual predictor of becoming a mass casualty offender, far outpacing mental health issues. So is there a link? The University of Maryland thinks so. And I've always had I should say, I always found it like strange that you have to be 21 to buy a drink, but at 18 they teach you how to kill. I always thought that that was weird. So you want me to learn how to kill before I can buy myself an alcoholic beverage? Am I the only one who finds that weird? You know, we ridicule other countries when we see those kids fighting wars, and yes, they're young, 13, 14, and we go, oh, this is appalling. But we're doing the same thing. We're just not getting them that young. But believe me, they're still young. They're still kids. Legally, they're still kids. And yet we're sending them off to war. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised when some of these guys commit extreme acts of violence. Because truth be told, it's kind of what they were taught to do. Peace.